My last stint was running an e-commerce company in India, similar to ASOS, from a scratchy startup, $20 million to $1 billion exit. Before that, been working with various brands, international brands like PVH Group, VF Corporation. Also worked in a large value retailer called Walmart, heading their softline business. Throughout this journey, one key reflection for me was everywhere I bought merchandise, made merchandise, sold merchandise, I wasted close to half of them. Right? And that was hitting. And every time we think that we make improvements, and whenever we go back and look at the metrics, how much of what we actually made really sold well, and that was only 50%. And that's a metric in the industry called full price sell-through, has been hovering around that mark for most of the time for decades. So the question was that how do we address this? That led me to create a startup. We are 8 years old. Now I just want to start with some of these numbers, right? And we have seen this multiple times, but I just want to reiterate once more. Over 150 billion products are made every year globally. And the interesting fact is close to 50 billion products go to landfill. And today you go everywhere, you just dig the deserts and you're getting clothing, right? Every reports, and we keep seeing that. And what does it mean in terms of carbon footprint? Billions of kgs of carbon footprint generated every year. Not only that, water, and we consume a huge amount of water, billions of kgs, liters of water. And I just try to convert this, what is the equivalent, this surplus fashion, in terms of trees, right? If you have to do this, and that's close to 5 billion trees. That's the amount of deforestation we are doing, equivalent of, or we have to plant so many trees to compensate for the carbon we are generating. Interesting, and like I told you that 1 out of 2 products consumers don't like, right? Irrespective of all the processes that we have, all the developments that only shows that it's not a small problem, it's a complex problem, right? For it's the supply chain, the lead times, the changing consumer needs all the time. For we almost have a coin toss probability of success. Being in the business for a long time, it actually, sometimes I get ashamed that you be in the industry, you're supposed to be an expert, you should be better than a coin toss. You're still a coin toss, right? And this continues to be there. Now, getting to the root cause of this problem and say that if the supply and demand is not matching, we need to start from demand, because supply is something that we can always do. What's not in our hand is demand. So things have to start improving in the demand forecasting area. Demand is very different from sales forecasting. So sometimes there is a confusion between sales forecasting and demand forecasting. Demand includes sales plus unmet demand, unmet needs of the customers. And you cannot improve demand forecasting if you don't improve demand understanding. So can we understand demand better? And demand understanding starts with consumer demand understanding. Demand is basically consumer demand. So that led to the journey of understanding consumer demand. How many of you are from a brand or retailer? Or have worked in the past with some brand or retailer? Now, we all use our own data to understand what our consumers are looking for. What worked in the past. Every season goes back. You look back and say what worked, what did not work. Just look at all the brands in the world and see what is their market share. Now, why am I saying this? Our understanding of consumer is limited by the data we have. Our data is limited by the share of the market that we are serving. And even the biggest brands have single-digit market share globally, because this is a very distributed industry. Nobody owns large, and there could be exceptions. Even the biggest brand is a very small dot in the ocean. Hence, each one of them don't understand consumer demand. Just imagine a small and medium-sized brand. They have so much of very less data, right? So all their analysis leads to us what I call a limited view of consumer demand understanding. And that understanding is also very, very static. In a world which is constantly changing, looking back and looking at a snapshot view of what is happening is not going to give us anything. Now, I'll share with you some vision, I think, NVIDIA towards the end of the presentation of what the future could look like. NVIDIA is doing a fantastic job in weather climate change prediction of the world itself at the earth scale, right? So can we do something like that in fashion, and can we also democratize this? So it's not about that big companies, today big companies have more data, small companies have less data. How do we democratize intelligence across, depending on, maybe you're a street vendor, maybe you are a local seller of fashion. How do we ensure we bring this to everybody? So that's been the question that we have been working on. So before we get into what could be a new way, let's look at how it's happening right now. Today, to forecast, we do maybe some of this, all of this, maybe more of, right? Which is, we use our internal data to understand, because that's real truth. It's zero party, first party data. We also look at expert reports, lots of forecasting reports available. Social trends, yes. Consumer panel interviews, that's also another way. Or aspirational comm shopping. Today digital is so big, for lots of digital research which is happening. And we also do store visits, trade shows, to get lead indicators of what people are thinking, right? And maybe I missed something, but various ways of collecting data. Now imagine all of this is happening in snapshot, none of them are integrated. There is no one view of what consumers are looking for. Even if there is that one view, many of them are not very scientific. So lots of judgments on top of that. Therefore, how do we bridge some gap? So hence a thought on, a new way. Now I wish that all the brands and retailers share their data amongst themselves, anonymizing it, right? Just look at it. You would just walk the Oxford Street, you will see a tone of yellow not selling well for some brand, maybe a luxury brand. Somebody else looked up to this brand and made that yellow, maybe in the next season, they're also failing. There is a cascading impact of not sharing goodness, or what's working for me and what's not working for me. As an industry, and I'm not saying that, you share something which is private, confidential information, which is a competitive advantage for you, but we don't, industry, there's no syndicate data available today in the fashion industry. Your data is as good as the data that you have, right, or you hear. And everything else is monetized, right? Even now, let's say if that happens, and then there is a global fashion data which is available, anonymized, we don't want to know what you sold exactly, but if you know the images, it can help. We can even remove the brands, it doesn't matter. In absence of that, we need to figure out, can we find out consumer demand at we call it always on demand sensing. Can we sense what consumers really need, so that the supply side do not make, they come closer. I'm just saying this is just one way, right? And I don't think one company can solve this problem. A lot of us have to come together. I think the future is all about platforming. The future is all about collaboration. Many of us are solving niche problems, but if you just solve one problem, and if two systems don't talk to each other, we don't have an integrated view. But this is our view. We move from a supply-driven supply chain to a demand-driven supply chain, in the sense, or a subjective way of supply chain. But while you use your own data, what we feel is your data is a very small representation of what's possible. For then we need to, now which means that you put consumer at the center. The future of supply chain is consumer centric. Now it's easier said than done. Imagine whether all of these functions can work together in an integrated way for a consumer centric delivery of fashion. Planning, product, sourcing, assorting, pricing, ordering, fulfillment. And let's say I've not even looked at all the consumer facing side of the business. How do we do that? Hence, we need to figure out, is there a way of understanding? Imagine we launched a satellite which is observing the earth only in one angle, fashion, consumer product interactions on fashion at a holistic earth level. Is that possible? That's a dream. But having said that, we could do something now, which is observe the digital shelves on a real-time basis, always on basis, which is a public data, not getting into the privacy of who bought it, products which are trading, and is consumer or consumers liking those products or not. Now, if we can figure out in some form a consumer product interaction, not at the level of consumer, but the level of products, what works, what doesn't work, where is consumer interest, where is no consumer interest. Can we convert digital shelf into digital basket? So that's the thought process. And how do we do that? For what we built is a one of its kind neural engine. Like Google ranks pages, when you search something, today Google shows you top 10 results based on what Google thinks that you might like, based on all your interactions. So what we are now figuring out is, we are asking the question to the internet, what are consumers preferring in the UK right now in women's dresses between, let's say, 100 pounds to 200 pounds, right? Not at one point of time, on an ongoing basis, so that you get to see movements. What's moving up, what's moving down. Demand perspective, not supply perspective. Not the question is not what the brand is offering, much easier. You can just collect the data and then say this is what the brand is offering. It's almost like digital browsing all the time. Now, how do we do that? We collect a lot of surrogate demand signals. I said when I started, I wish all the brands share data. If they had shared the data, we don't need to decode this. We are now trying to decode what's working because it's all sitting in the private boxes. So we look at what are consumers seeing more of. Now that's just one of the signals. These are all surrogate signals of demand. One of them, right? Which is eyeballs getting into which product. Not just that, but that's not good enough. Look at your analogy of a physical store. When we go to a store, if you have to ask what's moving in this store, one, a brand will not put an item which is not important for the customer at the front of the store. They will put in the front of the store. If something relatively less important, it will go behind the store. Or they like it's fresh, therefore I need to show it to my customer. Then we also look at what are customers telling about this product. Is it good, bad, ugly? For what are the ratings? What are the reviews? Then we also look at pricing and promotions. Is it doing well? It's catching eyeballs because it's discounted. Is it in stock, replenished? How is it in terms of velocity of movement off the shelf? For we are trying to decode that and many more signals. In fact, more and more social signals are now available. Some of the websites today even gave social trending position of a product on the website. So it's almost like we are collecting data at internet scale, looking at consumer product interaction at the level of geography, right? In fact, in some countries, we are able to do this at the level of zip codes. So we can do hyper-local trends, right? So that is just one of the engines. Now, a lot of questions, you might have this question to say, how relevant is digital? Because I'm an omni-channel retailer or omni-channel brand, 80% of my business is offline. How do you even know that whether this data is relevant? So this is the latest global research from GE Capital. 81% of shoppers research online before they buy offline. For online data is fairly relevant, if not 100%. It's fairly relevant. Close to 80% people are researching. Therefore, if you get a signal, it's relevant for omni-channel of your business. So coming back and say that, if you have to reduce the wastage prevent wastage in the fashion industry, we have to solve two questions. Question number one is the what, which is what is the source of the funnel? Before creation, there is ideation. What's getting into the funnel, right? If you improve the quality of that data, the chances that we come out with products which consumers don't like is high, right? We can reduce the probability. The second is, I'm going to make a statement. Just think about it. If you've been in the business, you would know it. There is no bad product if you made the right quantity. Yeah. Whenever a product fails, people talk about, oh, we didn't make a right product. No, you made wrong quantity. I can even sell one. If it doesn't even sell one, it's actually a poor product, right? Not even worth the management fees, right? So we have to solve at a very high level two questions. Of course, there are more questions, which is when and where. So the what and the how much are important questions. So we started our journey by solving the what question and moved on to solving the how much, and all with consumer at the center, with a holistic data, just not the data that we have right now. And in the morning, the professor was talking about AI is all about data. We've been thinking, right, what is AI? AI is as good as the data you have. Models are now becoming commodity. Models are available. You can choose which model. For the people who will win are the one who improve the quality of data. Right. So let's move on. Now we'll start by answering this question, which is the what question. So what we have done is to actually build a platform, a system which can help from designers to buyers, merchandisers, right through the system on. They can go and click. Okay, I really want to know trends at various levels in my country, in my category, in my period. tell me what the brands, which brands are doing well, which products are doing well, which colors are doing well, which prices are doing well, all from a consumer demand perspective. Right? So you get a pulse of the consumer. Then you can take this and say, is it aligned to my judgment? For what we are basically saying, can we augment our decision making? Am I making the right tone of the color? Right? Which consumers will like or not? We are not even saying that, you follow what is happening. That's not the idea. At an aggregation, what happens is, it's like this. When we do, a lot of people ask, right, by just looking at the data is past, how can we create something new? Does it occur to you as a question? Right? If you look at past, how do you think weather forecast happens? There is no forecast without data, and data is always history. Right? If you think we can't forecast, now to forecast you really need to know data, and data itself is history. If you have data, means it's history. Now the question is, are you looking at the clouds over London to forecast London? No. You zoom out. You zoom out and go through a satellite and then say, what is the movement, right? Where is the cloud movement into London? What is predictive of cloud over London? Then you start predicting, rain probability and all of that. That's why when we zoom out the data, that's why if you're sitting inside your data, you're very narrow. You just zoom out. This is just a zoom out. Using zoom out, you can start to predict what could happen in my space. Now, using this, what all you can do, right? One is can we spot consumer-driven opportunities? Because all the time we are looking for what is the next opportunity, how do I augment, right? So you can auto-spot those opportunities. For use a construct to figure this out, which is to say, where is consumer demand? Let's say if a consumer demand is high, and customer is actually valuing it, and you are not doing it at all, which means start doing recommendations. Consumer demand is high and you're doing small proportions, then do more recommendations. For you can get high level recommendations on, say, it's almost like saying what is the probability of a rain, a probability of a storm, right? For what can work for you. The same way it could be a black space, which is to say what to avoid, for what to do and what not to do recommendations. We'll play this. This is another view of our offering, which is to say, how do I spot trends? What are the upcoming trends? What are my do more trends, do less trends, right? And these trends are spotted, if I just take you through the process, we collect close to 500 million data impressions every week. We are sitting with 60 billion data impressions as a company. And we continue to look at where are the consumer demand trends going, and then stack rank them, and then say which trend is actually rising, which is falling, which is sustaining, right? And so that if you have an idea, you can go back and again validate or pick an idea which you have not thought of, for both for inspiration and also for validation, right? At the level of trends and also at the level of products and attributes. We use all computer vision models to extract sense from all the images that we are collecting. You can understand the size and scale of the number of products that we are processing at any point of time. And we use Gen AI for enriching all of these attributes. And whenever we talk about product features, as consumers, do we buy because it's called full sleeve, let's say, for example, maxi dress of this color and this print. Consumers don't look for functional attributes. Consumers are also looking for emotional attributes, right? Botanical prints, not just calling it. If you go back and check a lot of language available in the internet, they're all very functional language. For how do we understand the consumer emotional need? LLMs are helping today to understand the emotional needs of the customer with all the data that we have. So you can actually find out romantic florals. Now, if you go and search romantic florals, you may not get products, but when you only communicate like that in the language of consumer, they're going to come back. So that's something that we use. How do we really spot whether a trend is good or not? Today, let's say lots of forecasting companies might come to you and say, here are the top trends for 25. First of all, those days are gone that we can have static forecasts like that anymore. You cannot come and say with solidity and certainty that 2025 will be like this. 2025, only these 4 colors will do well. How are we able to predict this in a dynamic world? For we really need to move into a very dynamic way of color or any forecast for that matter. For the way we find that out is total number of items in a market. On the top is total number of items consumer prefer the most in a given attribute. let's say if your bottom is lots of reds, total reds in the market, reds that consumer like, and then red will get a score. Not just red, the tone of red will get a score, because we get RGBs, we convert them into Pantone shade. So it's at a microscopic level of forecast, which is to say which color, therefore we can grade even colors, right, at the level of hues and say, and we can do this for a geography. What's working in Germany could be very different from what's working in London. It could be even at the level of city as we move forward. So I just wanted to share with you some case studies of, how, if we don't improve relevance, everything that I'm talking about is improve relevance to customers. That's the only word, relevance. Now, if you improve relevance, the chances that consumers don't like comes down. So here is an large European brand, use some of our technologies they wanted to test and say, okay, I have my current process, but I want to change the process. A new way of understanding consumer trend. And then they launched many styles. We send them trend cast. They get trend cast on in this case, weekly, monthly basis. This is what happened. They put these products along with products they've made already. The 60%, typically when I ask any brand and say what percentage of products are top sellers, right? If you define your top sellers, it will be around the 80-20 rule. It may be in the 10% or 20%. 60% of the products made using consumer demand are sitting in the top box of performance, which is 2 to 3 times the normal average. Now what I'm saying, imagine the industry starts to understand consumer demand, that we reduce the wastage. These products have less unsold inventory, right? That's a way forward in that company. Again, I'm talking about, that is an omni-channel brand, multi-country retailer. This is another large online fashion retailer who wanted to say, we want to ensure that we understand Gen Z trends correctly, right? And we want to improve relevance for Gen Z brands, right? Again, they got lots of trend cast. And these numbers sometimes sometimes I'm very ashamed of quoting these numbers, because many companies, when you go, you see numbers 4% lift, 5.7% lift. It looks foolish to say we have doubled. I can tell you it's real. Because there is so much of inefficiency today that we could really improve the amount of products that consumers like at the overall level. So we started with fashion. We also now work with home and home improvement space. Idea is to produce more and more of what consumers want, less and less of what they want less of. Now, I just want to take you through what our users get to see. You can spot high demand trends in few clicks. You can spot a lot of customers ask us, right? We don't even know whom to follow or whom to track. But how do you know which brands consumers like? It's not just products consumers like, what brands consumers like. In fact, many a times there are a lot of products which, for example, in this case, this brand has a lot more supply and very low demand compared to relative. Because many a time when you go to a store and say, oh, they have a lot of options. A lot of options only tells you what is their offer in a competitive space. You can look at what are the attributes which are working. Whether it is solids, printed, what is the proportion of solids. For all of this, we're extracting using vision algorithms, using the images and text that we are getting at internet scale. Which neck for attribute makes, color makes, proportions for buying and merchandising. Colors at the level of Pantone shades, right? Of course, this is digital color, right? May not exactly match to your physical, but you'll get a broad idea of the tone of colors that they are working. We are not calling it by fancy names, that purple, because you don't know how to figure that out. This is exact RGB and shades. Price mix, are there dollar opportunities? Price mix that we need to look at, enter, exit. Whether it is assortment strategy or a pricing strategy or a color strategy, you get a view of that. And then recommendations on, one is to have all of this data, and what we are now realizing, and this is also our journey, that, time, and we're all so busy, right? And one more tool to use. So we are moving into recommendations in the sense, understanding your context, understanding your market, what should you actually be doing? So these are recommendations of white space opportunities. Yeah, that's all about what, and I think a lot can be done there. For example, this is all the retail signals. You can augment this with search. You can augment this with social. You can augment this with your own data. So the point I want to leave you with is that expand your data horizon. What is the data you are seeing, and also the quality of that data, and start taking informed decisions, and you will see not only your economic metrics going up, you're going to help the planet by reducing wastage. So let's move to the much more important question, which is how much. And one of the most difficult problems, there are enough demand forecasting solutions in the world, which is helping you with the financial planning, helping you with OTBs. But the toughest problem to solve is you made a new dress right now. You have never made it before. How do you predict whether that will do well or not in a time frame which is into the future? That's the toughest problem. There is no software here at this point of time, not many there, and the accuracies are actually low. This is again an area a lot of us need to work. So we are doing a bit of our work here, which is, and we said our prediction is as good as the data. Therefore, from Stylomia perspective, we come with a lot of data that the brand doesn't have, right? So we start with the data augmentation, and we call it test before launch. Imagine you made a 3D design, and you infuse this into a model, and the model tells you the probability of success. You can, let's assume that is much better than your current forecast. You can minimize sampling. Why should I sample where my probability of success is low? Now that doesn't mean that probability of success is low, you will not do. You will still do those statement pieces, right? At least you know now you will procure low depth. Right? For low depth, high depth, for the moment you adjust the depth, you're also adjusting the width. For right sizing the assortment, it helps you do that. So I'm going to give you a very quick shoes demo here. Now you can create, let's say for example, you want to now test a new product. You can upload a shoe. What it does is it, using the vision model, extracts the attributes of that product. Yeah, of course it's a quick fast forward if you want to correct some of the attributes, because attribute quality is so important. No AI model is perfect, right? The best of AI model accuracy on attribute extraction is around 80 to 85%. So then you make the correction, then it gives you whether it is good, average, or poor in terms of prediction. And you can even predict an ROS if you have already given all the data to us. And it also explains why this is good and bad. Which attribute is positively contributing to this and which attribute is negatively contributing to this. Now you can do this at, imagine that this is a customer research engine sitting next to you, right? Of course, this model is as good as, and again, Professor would have told you in the morning, is about human augmented AI, which means all the domain knowledge has to get in before building this model, in the sense that, for example, if you have a view of your customer profiles, what really works for them, what are those attributions, very, very important. For it's a joint exercise. We make a model which is winning model based on all the inputs of the domain experts here. So if the model wins, it is collective win, right? Imagine every percentage lift in the forecast accuracy here is a huge lift in the top line, bottom line, and wastage reduction. Now, with all the Gen AI talk which is happening, and how can we use Gen AI in a way that, and today I think the future of enterprise systems are completely going to change. And I'm going to show you a very quick view of what's coming up from our side, where you don't need to go into all those drop-down filters, right? Tell me last week's market activity, for example, right? Or suggest privacy and promotion opportunities, recommend my assortment strategy for me considering all my background, or predict demand of a new product. So you just convert all of this into a simple query response engine, right? For it's spotting white space opportunities for you. Of course, all the data is all relevant. Your data is there, market data is there, and we have curated the market for you. It starts to give you, what is moving up, what has happened in the recent past, what your competitions have launched. Yeah, so the opportunity is plenty. It's about, this is just not about interface and UX. It is all about getting answers for my key questions. So I just want to, for those interested in data science, we have a extraction process where all these images collected at global scale are extracted through our model. Both category extraction, subcategory extraction, attribute models, multi-layer models are used. Then we have an automation pipeline of, tagging, and now LLM is part of this because LLM is able to enrich some of the attributes which typical attribution models don't do. For example, occasion is a very difficult attribute to extract from product. How do you know this is a wedding dress if it is not mentioned in the text anywhere, right? Or a party dress for that matter. And the entire ML architecture of not only collecting market data, infusing your own data, building explainability in the entire process. Now, how do we interpret all the pre-testing that we are doing? You saw that shoe prediction. It happens through all the shape values which comes, and based on that, we provide you. And I just also want to tell you that any AI model which is doing, no AI model is getting into causality as of now. Everything is correlation. So I don't want to promise you that all the AI models prediction are causal. They are not causal. They are correlation. Yes, correlation does help. So I will also share with you, we are doing an active research with an MIT professor, and he's just publishing a paper. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of that also. So these are our demand forecasting models, prediction accuracy, error rates. This is at the level of consumer need state in a jewelry retailer. When we entered the company, they had a 17.9% weighted map, W map, which is a weighted mean absolute percentage error. That's how you measure forecast accuracy. And now currently we are under 0.5%. And of course, it's a different life cycle. Every 45 days they forecast. Don't take this for all your businesses. These numbers could be higher. These are some of the impact. We keep measuring. Of course, we have no positive way of measuring this. Everything I'm showing you is all based on case studies. Our extrapolation of what we would have saved. We have so far reduced 220 million products of wastage through our customers based on all the metrics that we are tracking. That's equivalent of planting 55 million trees, right? It gives us all the motivation to be in this, whatever we are doing, and do more of. Roughly 30% reduction on carbon footprint. And I also want to share with you AI adoption. How mature are we right now? Of course, these are published some numbers. Companies that don't adopt AI are slow. And today, speed is fundamental, right? For all technology enables only two vectors, which is speed and accuracy, right? For speed of supply chain will also reduce wastage. Also impacts consumers, right? Consumers don't buy products which are out of stock items, therefore you have not done forecasting better for how do we improve your top line. And this is the status quo, right? Just a year back research, it's improving. 80% of the brands are not even looking at, and the latest research we saw in the morning that people are wanting to adopt AI. So this is actual. Just a year back number, things are changing. And I also want to share with you that where is the AI investment going in technology? By 2029, that's how demand forecasting is an area that people are betting a lot of money on, right? In terms of investing in technology, whether it is AI powered design. When we say AI powered design, AI enabled. It's all information. It's not replacing human. Again, demand forecasting, fashion trend spotting, using technology to do this, and using human judgment on top of that. From a maturity perspective, it'll be good for you to assess where you are in the journey for each of the companies to say, what questions are we asking? Are we moving from what happened? How often? Why is it happening? What if this continue? What will happen next? And what is the best that can happen? So, how do we have from hindsight to foresight? So that's the journey to take, and definitely technology is helping, and the journey that we are seeing that, how do we predict something even before I make a single unit? So that's a bit of foresight that we are moving into. We have partnerships across, thanks to UAL, and for us, participating in academics is very important because I think future leaders are coming from here. We are part of the curriculum already in UAL, and we would like to do more of. And similarly, partnered with FIT and various other fashion institutes. I just want to share with you that Forbes Futurist spotted us as one of the top 3 innovations in 2023. So that's Bernard Marr's article. And Gartner has been spotting us almost every year, in fact, 5 times in the last 12 months on a consumer-driven transformation. And I also want to share with you, this is a MIT paper, which is just getting published. Therefore, don't put it in the public media. This is only for the audience here, right? And this entire research happened on Stylomia data, right? Now, what is this about? Model diversity in e-commerce. Because today people are buying pixels, right? Image and text, nothing else. And they're actually betting on this. Now, what this research was, using consumer demand data of Stylomia, and they attributed, let's say, for example, if the model is diverse, depending on the skin color, and how is it correlated to propensity of customers to buy. In fact, they have done and validated this with consumer panel also, because we are a derived data. They also did this with the data, and they found a very good correlation, right? This article will get published very soon. And I want to present, a vision of the future. And of course, I've taken the full inspiration from, one second. I don't know how many of you have seen the Earth 2 video of NVIDIA. Have you? Let me